If you have these steel wheels with hubcaps, you want to start by removing the hubcap. Sometimes it can be a little bit challenging, so use a pry bar or a screwdriver of some sort and pry these out. Just be gentle so you don't break them. With a 21mm socket, remove all 5 of your lug nuts and then take off the wheel. Next, I want to take off the axle nut. You'll need a 30mm 12-point socket for this, and preferably a deep socket because the axle does stick out quite a bit, and a shallow socket won't make it all the way on the nut. Now you want to make sure that your axle pushes through the hub. If it's seized, you can use a punch and a hammer and punch it in. This one's not seized, so that's perfect. Next, I want to take off this 12mm bolt here that secures the ABS wire and the brake hose onto the strut. Take both of those off. Next, with a 22mm socket, I'm going to remove this nut and hold the bolt side with a 22mm wrench. Do the same to the bottom one. Make sure these spin freely, and they do, that's perfect. Now you can remove these bolts. And as you pull the knuckle forward, make sure the axle pushes in. The reason you want to do that is so that you don't accidentally separate your inner CV joint. Okay, now make sure you're not putting a tug on either of these two. On the back side of the sway bar link, I put some locking pliers, and then with a 17mm socket, I'm going to attempt to take this nut off. Oh, okay, I guess it did work. Sometimes the locking pliers don't hold, and it wants to just strip this out. From inside the engine bay, go ahead and remove 2 of these 3 nuts, and on the third one, I'm actually going to hold the strut on the bottom because this is the last thing holding the strut onto the car. By the way, these are 14mm nuts. All right, now go ahead and hold it underneath. And here is your old strut assembly. With your new strut assembly, go ahead and put it into the vehicle here, line up the studs, and then have at least one nut ready to thread on so that once it's on here, you can thread on this nut and then let go of it because it's pretty heavy. Now you can put on the other 2. And I'm going to bottom them out, but I'm not going to tighten them yet. You want to tighten these with the weight of the vehicle on the strut assembly itself. That basically means when the wheel's on and the car's on the ground. Okay, so leave that just like that for now. Go ahead and reinstall your sway bar link into the strut, snug it up. And now you want to bring your knuckle up into the strut. Get one of your bolts started. Usually the bottom one will line up first, and to get the top one in, just press in on the knuckle. I'm just going to set the ABS wire and brake hose in place. Go ahead and put your nut on to both bolts, of course. Snug them both up and then torque them to 159 foot-pounds. Reattach this ABS wire retainer here, and now resecure your ABS wire and brake hose onto this bracket. Snug that up. Resecure this one up here too if you took it off. Go ahead and put on your axle nut, bottom it out, and torque it to 217 foot-pounds. Put a pry bar going across, and it's actually hanging onto my lift. If you want, you can put the pry bar up against the ground, but whatever you do, you want to make sure that this is holding steady, so otherwise they'll just keep spinning as you try to torque it. Or what you can do is you wait until you put the wheel on, and then you go through the center of the wheel and torque it that way with the weight of the vehicle on the ground. Perfect. Go ahead and put the wheel back on. Start on all 5 of your lug nuts, snug them up, and torque them to 76 foot-pounds. Go ahead and torque these in a star pattern. And don't forget about your hubcap. You want to make sure that you line up the cutout on the hubcap with the valve stem. And now with the weight of the vehicle on the ground, go ahead and torque these to 59 foot-pounds.